Okay, so because I'm stupid and don't know how to estimate how long my script is, this is actually not the final video. This is the second to last video in this series, going over the structure of the movie as well as the Autobot and Decepticon casts. Without further ado, let's get into it. My name is Paul, and this is Plot Spot. Welcome to Plot Spot, the place where we analyze stories and try to determine what makes them succeed or fail. Last time, we finished up the Battle of Mission City, as well as the plot of the movie. We saw Blackout and Brawl die, we saw Sam kill Megatron, Starscream escape, and Optimus set up the next movie. Now let's look at the structure and pacing of the movie. After Optimus Prime's introduction, we dive into the attack on Soxcent and our introduction of Sam. This all moves along at a good speed. Any of the problems with these scenes would be solved by editing as opposed to removing them outright. Sam's introductory scenes are particularly good, except for some hiccups here and there, but they give us a look into who Sam is. Just an average kid in 21st century America. Next, we have the inciting incident where Sam buys Bumblebee, unknowingly setting him on a path that will change his life forever. The rest of the first act introduces us to Keller, shows Lennox's team being pursued by Scorponok, Sam's first meaningful interaction with Mikaela, Frenzy hacking into Air Force One and uploading a virus, and followed by the end of the first act when Bumblebee runs away from home and turns into a robot. Again, none of this is without flaws, but on the whole, the first act is pretty tight and does a great job setting the stage. An average boy's life, a government reeling from an unknown enemy's attack, trying to come up with a way to fight back, and then the reveal of Sam's new car being an alien robot. It's also paced well. The film moves along nicely, and there are no scenes that I would straight up remove from it, except for the Maggie subplot. Instead, I would show more of Keller and not focus in on cracking the signal. Just let that simmer in the background. Extra screen time also could have went to Starscream. But overall, good job. Act 1 gets a pass from me. The second act is where things start to fall down. It opens alright with Maggie talking to Keller about her theory, although I think the movie would be better served by cutting Maggie out. I'll go into more depth on that in the character portion. We'll skip over the runtime vacuum of a scene at the police station, and then we'll go to Scorponok finally attacking Lennox's team. As I mentioned before, Scorponok should have been able to easily kill Lennox and his team long before, but that aside, this is a great introduction to a somewhat fair fight between Decepticons and humans. The action continues with Barricade going after Sam and Bumblebee rescuing him before proceeding to not kill the murderous villain when he has the chance. We also get the deciphering signal subplot, which is, as I said before, kind of garbage. That could have been much more condensed, and instead, we could have gotten a scene or two of Decepticons talking to each other to, I don't know, build them up as characters? Or we could have gotten more interactions between Sam and Bumblebee. Sam and Mikaela meet the rest of the Autobots in what is another good scene, coming in at the right time to give some more clarity to the story and change the stakes. However, the second act gets worse when we get to Sam's house and we waste time for 8 minutes, or about 6% of the total movie's runtime. We get Simmons' scene afterward, which is good, but it's followed by the unearned emotional capture of Bumblebee. Things start to pick up again with the whole Hoover Dam scene. It ends rather strongly, even if there are a few issues with Decepticon and Autobot intelligence and the laws of physics. So the second act is the weakest part of the movie, and I don't think that's particularly contentious. It drags in the first half in a lot of places, and then drags right after the midpoint, and is full of character stupidity and emotional scenes that they didn't put in the work to deserve. It certainly has its bright spots, but far and away, it's the part of the movie that needed the most reworking. It really could have used a scene of Starscream talking to another Decepticon or two instead of Maggie's antics, or the police station, or the house, or all three. And then we have the third act, where things get better again. There is some over-the-top action sprinkled throughout, but overall, I'd say it's pretty strong. We get a lot of great battles and action, and some good character stuff as well, even if there are a few speed bumps here and there. I think one of the biggest flaws of the third act is the truncated resolution. It's less than 5 minutes long. Granted, it's probably the best of any of Bay's Transformers movies. They all have this tendency to abruptly end after the climax. I think the story would have been better served if the resolution was doubled in length and we got to see a bit more of Sam's life post-alien invasion, as well as what the Autobots were up to, including their future plans, such as hunting Starscream. Because, as far as they know, he is still active on the planet. Not to mention, who knows how many other Decepticons are active on the planet, and of course, the creatures that came to life through the Allspark. Instead, we get just enough to be serviceable. But still, the movie finishes fairly strong and delivers a pretty good Transformers experience. Now, on to the characters. I split this into 3 categories: Decepticons, Autobots, and humans. We'll start with the Decepticons since they'll be the quickest. The list of Decepticons in this movie is Megatron, Starscream, Blackout, Brawl, Bonecrusher, Barricade, Frenzy, and Scorponok. And we'll just be talking about Megatron. Alright, that's a bit mean, but it's also kind of true. Scorponok, Bonecrusher, and Brawl have no personalities to speak of. Blackout's is razor thin, Barricade is only slightly better, and Frenzy and Starscream are about on the same level as him. Actually, I think Frenzy is more of a character than Starscream and Barricade, so let's talk about him. Frenzy is a spy and infiltrator who's not afraid to kill. Or something. And he is kind of a moron that doesn't try very hard to conceal himself. Luckily for him, everyone is stupider than him, so they don't notice. And I guess he's persistent. Yeah, that's about it. Well, there's also his manic personality, which I said earlier makes sense with his name, but I can't help but see the seeds of things to come, and it makes me terrified of the future. There's really nothing to say about Barricade and Blackout. They both perform their jobs with a reasonable level of competence, although Blackout is a bit stupid at times. There's a lot of potential for Barricade in particular, and it would have been nice to see in future movies. And I'll touch on Starscream because he's the only Decepticon that talks to Megatron, and he gets a bigger role in the next movies. He gets a grand total of 11 words, and we get no indication of what his personality is like. He's traditionally the traitor's second command of the Decepticons, but we don't get that feel from him in this movie unless you already know that about him and project that onto this screamer. Then you interpret his "I live to serve you, Lord Megatron" line as being a sycophant trying to get on Megatron's good side. But if you know nothing about Starscream, he seems like he's just a loyal soldier, perhaps a routine bungler considering Megatron's "you fail me yet again, Starscream," but not disloyal. In fact, you don't get that feel from any of his appearances in the series unless you know to look for that. Otherwise, you'll just see a stupid, incompetent, but loyal soldier a la Lugnut. With the exception of Megatron calling him treacherous in The Last Night and his sarcastic-sounding line in Dark of the Moon.
"Oh, my poor master, how it pains me to see you so wounded, so weak."
Which is jarring with the rest of his personality as shown in the movies, including that one.
"So impressive."
But I'm getting ahead of myself. In this movie, I don't get much of a feel of who Starscream is. He's just the guy that seemed to be in charge while Megatron was on ice. If only we could have had some more character interactions earlier in the film. And I want to stress that Starscream doesn't have to be traitorous. Armada did an interesting twist on Starscream where he was a loyal soldier who defected to the Autobots briefly because Megatron was
Such a dick.
Watch Armada sometime if you haven't. Starscream's story is a pretty interesting one. Just save yourself the pain and don't watch Energon. But for this movie, I think the filmmakers were going for the classic interpretation and just relied on fans' knowledge. No matter what they were going for, it didn't come across well. Now, on to the only Decepticon with a distinct personality in this film. The Big M himself, Megatron. We get from Optimus's narration and Megatron's actions that the Decepticon leader is hell-bent on attaining power by any means necessary. He is not afraid to kill those in his way and sees beings weaker than himself as not worth fighting for. He is the embodiment of might makes right. And while he seems to prefer having his underlings do the heavy lifting, judging by his late arrival to Mission City and just sitting and surveying the battle after killing Jazz until Prime shows up, he also is perfectly willing to get in there and get his hands dirty. However, that's about all we can glean from Megatron, and while that's not bad for a villain, it would be nice to have a more fleshed-out interpretation of the character that shows a bit more of his motivation. The only time we get anything close to a deeper examination of Megatron's character is actually in The Last Night, believe it or not. Of course, The Last Night being a flaming pile of dog shit means that doesn't pan out to much. But don't worry, we'll cover that in good time. So yeah, the Decepticons kind of suck. Now, I'm not expecting every character to be this fully three-dimensional being. There obviously is not enough time to devote character development to everyone, particularly all the villains. But still, it would be nice if we only had one or two Decepticons in this film that were just mindless killers, and we got a little bit more from the others as opposed to the inverse. Giving them even little bits of dialogue would be amazing. But that's the problem with the Decepticons in these movies. They're little more than monsters that are the sources of explosions and act as cannon fodder in later installments. And I feel that's just a disservice to the history of the Transformers brand. The Decepticons have always had distinct personalities, to varying degrees of course, but particularly when you had a tighter cast, you got a great collection of characters bouncing off each other in unique and fun ways. Starscream was different from Soundwave, who was different from Rumble, who was different from Swindle. And when we look at a series like Beast Wars, the differences are even more pronounced. Compare Megatron to Tarantulas, Rampage, and Waspinator. Now sure, you have a lot more time to develop characters in a series, but I'm not asking for a deep dive into why Frenzy fights for the Decepticons and decides to rip Sam's pants off. I'm just asking for the characters to be distinct from each other and not be the same bland, mute monster. Tell me what is really different between Brawl, Bonecrusher, or Scorponok. Nothing, that's what. It doesn't take much time to set up distinct characters, but it does take effort and skill, something this franchise is severely lacking in. Now, on to the Autobots. And we'll start off with the best written character of the movie, and that is Ironhide. Yep, Ironhide. You thought I was going to say Prime? But nope, Ironhide. Even though we see more of the Autobot leader, his character is sabotaged again and again by making him do stupid things. Ironhide gets the most character depth and consistency. I mean, it's not great, but it's better than everyone else. Let's look at the weapons specialist. Ironhide obviously doesn't care much for humans. Not that he wants to kill them wantonly, but he also doesn't see the point in trying to fight for them either. Not when they don't present themselves as respectable beings. That said, he is a loyal soldier and follows orders, and he fights to protect Sam when he carries the Allspark during the Battle of Mission City. Now, it would have been really nice to see an exchange between Sam and Ironhide where the latter acknowledges the kid's bravery, but we'll take what we can get. We, unfortunately, can't ask for too much from these movies.
The creators, they don't like it.
Let's move on to Ratchet. He's a medic, and that's about as much as we know about him, other than he's willing to fight alongside the Warriors. So, that's great and everything, but that's about as deep as his character is. Plus, as I already mentioned, his character is damaged by him not seeing to Bumblebee during the Mission City fight. I'm not asking him to drop everything and not even fight, but he doesn't even come to investigate after Sam calls for him.
Ratchet!
What kind of medic is he? What kind of friend? What kind of Autobot? He doesn't show up again until he charges Brawl. That's fine, but we could have had a brief scene of him trying to fix B. It wouldn't take more than 30 seconds of screen time. Such a waste. I also think it's a bit disturbing that the medic is egging on Ironhide to kill Sam's parents. On to Jazz. Jazz is Prime's second-in-command in this film, and he seems as dismissive of the humans as Ironhide. In this shot of Optimus asking Sam for help, Jazz stands there with his arms crossed, while the others hold more respectful poses. Plus he says twice that they should attack Sector 7 to rescue Bumblebee. The problem is that he then doesn't do anything to help Bumblebee during the Battle of Mission City, much like Ratchet. We don't see any interaction between him and B. It would be great if we saw the two fight side by side, trying to protect the humans from Starscream. But no, we don't get shit. This is part of the reason his death falls flat. They needed to up Jazz's screen time significantly to make his death matter. Maybe even give him a scene protecting humans from Megatron to give him something of a character arc. That could have been why he didn't retreat. Some humans were slow or trapped and he had to cover them, and they could have even reused a Megatron quote for more nostalgia.
Such heroic nonsense.
Instead, Jazz just stumbles around like an elderly person that just escaped the Alzheimer's ward. Which actually isn't the only time he does that in this movie. Another wasted opportunity as per the usual arrangement. Let's take a look at Super Scout, the Kid Appeal character, the Yellow Wonder, Bumblebee. What is there to say about Bumblebee? He gets the most screen time of any of the Autobots, but I don't feel like I have a real good grip on who he is. His inability to speak certainly hampers that, but that can't be all of it. After all, R2-D2 speaks even less intelligibly than B, and yet I can describe his personality well. So let's put B under the microscope. The first thing we get of his personality is when he backfires after listening to Sam's parents for hours. Then he tries to help Sam get together with Michaela. So it seems like he's a bit mischievous and takes a quick liking to Sam, since he decides to put the mission on the back burner to help with Sam's romantic life. Which, as I said before, is questionable. Afterward, he takes off in the middle of the night, but doesn't seem to leave Sam behind, so it seems like B wanted to show him that he's an alien robot. Then he comes to Sam's rescue when the dogs chase him. The next day, he returns and chases Sam in a reverse from the other night. Obviously, he doesn't care about keeping his true nature hidden from Sam at this point, or really anyone, it would appear. So again, I think the writers are trying to say that Bumblebee is going off script a bit to let Sam in on the big secret. Again, we see Bumblebee protect Sam from Barricade, and then he tells Sam that he's an alien, but he doesn't reveal much else. I think they wanted to save that for Optimus's scene, but it would have been better to move some of that up to this scene. It would have trimmed some exposition from Prime and given some more character to B. Perhaps Sam would ask why B has been helping him, and Bumblebee could reply that Sam has something he needs, and that they could also try to get across that he has taken a liking to the boy. After this, we don't get much until the capture scene, except for the infamous lubricating scene, which again shows that Bumblebee is mischievous. I guess. But also,
he's nude and he's perverted.
Then he once more rescues Sam, but as I said before, I think this emotion is unearned. Perhaps if they implemented a scene between the two of them like I posited, or restructured the film so that B reveals himself sooner to Sam so they get some time to bond, then this scene's emotion would come off as less hollow. We then see that B doesn't take too kindly to being captured, but I guess he puts it aside once he knows the Allspark is here. This comes across as unfocused and schizophrenic, not like his mind has actually changed about something. I wish they had shown him to still be on guard with Sector 7 through the rest of the sequence, instead of just going to business as usual. Then we see during the Battle of Mission City Bumblebee's bravery with Ironhide and fighting Brawl while crippled, as well as his willingness to sacrifice himself for the mission. Then once it's all done, he decides he wants to stay and protect Sam. Optimus introduces him to Sam as his guardian, which from everything that's said seems to be a temporary position. But I guess he has grown to like Sam by the end of the movie, hence wanting to stay. The problem is that it seems as if he liked Sam enough at the beginning of the movie to help him with his personal problems despite not knowing him. I really think they should have moved up the barricade fight to earlier in the movie and given us a scene where Sam and B talk to each other. Something rather chill that can show them getting to know each other. Then later, we see B grow to like Sam. That would have cemented their bond more by the end of the movie. So what does all this tell us about Bumblebee? He's a mischievous Autobot who does things his way, sometimes to the point of annoyance, but he cares about Sam and, I guess, other humans. Also, he's brave and more than willing to fight. But when I look at him half the time, he just feels like a vehicle to move the plot along and create action. No pun intended, although...
Yeah.
Like, does he care about other humans besides Sam? Did he not in the beginning of the movie, but does by the end? I don't know. In the end, B ends up being a stronger character than Ratchet and Jazz, as he has a bit more depth, just not a lot of it, and nothing that sabotages his character very much. And finally, we get to the boss bot, Optimus Prime, the leader of the Autobots. Where to begin with this guy? So he wants to defeat the Decepticons and cares about human life enough to not want to see the war destroy their planet. He doesn't want to risk harming humans even to save his comrade. So that all seems good. This is Prime's personality. But then that is undercut by not saving the helicopter, letting vehicles crash into his foot, roughly handling said vehicles, and running down crowded streets instead of transforming to vehicle mode. I get that humans are going to be in harm's way during these battles. There's only so much Optimus can do about that. But he doesn't have to make things worse by, not saving humans. We also have to talk about his lack of intelligence when it comes to strategy and understanding the situation. He is the leader of the Autobots, meaning he should be the most qualified to lead. The other Autobots wouldn't follow him if he wasn't capable. But his grand plan is to destroy the cube by sacrificing himself, when he should be able to destroy Megatron with it, a la this scene from the Transformers game where Optimus kills Megatron by punching him with the Allspark in his hand. That's actually a better ending than the movie, because it is more logical to use a Decepticon spark than an Autobot to destroy the cube, and it's easier to believe that the Transformers know how to activate the Allspark, even if they don't know when they should. This is coupled with Optimus just sitting between the buildings, deciding to jump on the Megatron for some reason, and running down the street from Sector 7. And let's not forget the house fiasco, where he just refuses to listen to Sam like he's some retarded child.
Stop treating me like a retarded child or something.
Throughout that whole scene, he thinks that constantly bothering Sam will make him search faster, and he thinks that hiding in vehicle mode in the backyard is a good strategy. That whole scene is infuriating. It boggles the mind that a being could be so stupid, especially one that has commanded the Autobots in war. Maybe this is why they lost the war. So yeah, Prime ain't great in this movie, but we also haven't gotten into his bloodthirstiness. We'll address that next time, so I have no problem with his actions in that regard in this movie. I feel his character slightly improves in the next 2 installments, other than the aforementioned willingness to kill unarmed and injured enemies. So let's briefly talk about the Autobots in general. It seems that they are supposed to have this respect for humanity. I get that it seems to be a general principle of their code, with Optimus saying that freedom is the right of all sentient beings. But their care for humans seems to go beyond this generic respect for life, what with B's quickness to help Sam and Optimus saying,
You know we don't harm humans.
Again, as with other parts of this film, they are shortcutting the storytelling by relying on 20 years of Transformers fiction where the Autobots are the protectors of humanity, or where the good guys at least protect humanity's biological ancestors. They pretend that they can just copy and paste that into this movie, but that's not how it works. You have to put in the work yourself. Make that effort. You can't just transplant G1 Prime onto Animated Prime. They share several traits, but they are distinct characters. Transformers Animated took the time to establish their own characters and plot points, not just rely on people's knowledge of old fiction. After all, every Transformers continuity will be someone's first. This was basically mine, besides watching some Transformers Cybertron. And as I got older and watched other Transformers series, I have seen the flaws of this movie more and more. And next time we will cover one of the biggest reasons for these flaws, the human cast. Hopefully the next part will be out in short order, but we know how my schedule tends to work at this point. Anyway, go out and find more stories, then I'll meet you back here where we'll examine another one. Until next time, I've been Paul, and this has been Plot Spot. Armada did an interesting twist on Megatron. What?